Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon video. So today's going to be a little bit more on the topical side, kind of looking at what the heck happened with BT16, and as far as from a meta competitive standpoint, what you can still play around with that's still meta viable using only some minimal upgrades from BT16, so it's not like you hardcore need BT16 in order to compete in that environment. Now, I do know that BT16, the supply is lower than some other sets that we've seen in the past, and with not just one but two secret rares being meta competitive and needing at least 3 to 4 copies, it's going to have a lot of demand to it, which obviously when it comes to low supply and high demand, the market is going to say that yes, the booster box is going to be expensive. It's even more expensive than the current most expensive set, which was X Record, which had a lot of hype and power backed into it, similar to, well, BT16. But as we can see with some of the other booster boxes, that's not necessarily the case very often. Most of the time, booster boxes are going to be anywhere between like $55 to $75. That's just the normal going rate, but there's lots of different factors that go into the price of what the booster box currently is and the market fluctuation of them. But I do know that from distributors, stores generally get these booster boxes at about $55 to $65, so it's not like the stores are making a whole lot of money. So that's kind of why with Beginning Observer, stores don't really want to lose this opportunity to actually make money on Digimon, which is really good for the stores, but really hard for the players because it makes it harder for us to want to pick up the set and to be able to play with the cards in the set. Thankfully, we do have singles that we can grab in case we don't have the availability to be able to get any product. It does seem like the adventure boxes are in more supply than actual booster boxes itself, so if you're able to find adventure boxes at $25, which is their MS, then it just seems more beneficial to buy adventure boxes over actual booster boxes. But regardless, there's still lots of meta viable decks that you can play with just minimal upgrades from BT16, which is going to be the main and core focus of this video, is what you can still do with BT16 without needing a whole lot of it. So I'm not going to be going hyper in-depth into each of the decks that I'm going to be showing off. This is just a good core or base build and a foundation for you to look at it just to kind of see where the deck is kind of at and what the BT16 card is and how it's going to be impacting what the deck does. So starting off with one of my personal favorites, Mirage Galgamon. So Mirage Galgamon, we did get a new common that is a new level 4 Galgamon, and this card just does a lot, not only for Nightclaw and Lightfang, but for Galgamon himself. So he has the inheritable ability of jamming. So this is already important because we were already wanting to use jamming to make our attacks into the opponent's security relatively safe because blue doesn't have the best ways to DP boost their Digimon. So we were relying on cards like Bukamon to be able to give us jamming. But with a Bukamon getting limited to 1, it limited our access to jamming, which made our attacks a lot riskier, which is why we shifted over to using Betamon from BT15 to kind of make up that gap and still have access at that jamming ability, and BT16 Galgamon is another way for us to have that, so that way we have more access at the jamming ability. But as far as what else this card is doing for the deck, his Wind Digivolving ability is actually really strong. So his Wind Digivolving ability lets both players draw a card, which is already doing exactly what the deck wants because it wants the opponent to have a high hand count to take advantage of that. And we're also going to be gaining a memory if the opponent has 8 or more cards in their hand, so it allows us to be a little bit more tempo efficient. The cool thing is this card does combo very nicely with the EX4 Galmon because its inheritable ability when a card is added into the opponent's hand by an effect, we get a gain of memory, which we just did with our BT16 Galgamon, so you can already see that we can be relatively tempo efficient, and then we can use cards like Mental Training to basically digivolve for free memory from our level 3 into our level 4, and now we're actually gaining memory for digivolving, which again is really crazy, while trying to put the opponent at that 8 hand mark to allow a lot of our abilities to be as impactful and effective as possible. But with BT16, we already know that the set is going to have lots of defensive cards, and we're going to shift to the deck to accommodate those defenses that we're going to be facing, and we actually have a tool to bypass those defenses in the form of BT13 Mach Gaugamon. So he has a nice when attacking ability where if the opponent has 8 or more cards in their hand, then this Digimon's attack target can't be switched. This does apply to the whole stack, so if we Digivolve up into a level 6, this also carries over. So this is really important because we want to make sure this attack specifically is going to be as safe as possible, especially since we want to go up into our level 6 right after for his inheritable ability to unsuspend him, so that way we could get an extra attack in. So it's a good way to be hyper aggressive while bypassing the opponent's defenses that BT16 Gaugamon is helping set up, which is what's propelling the deck to still be meta competitive and relevant. So shifting gears from one dog to another and one OTK deck to another, we still have Fenrir Lugumon. That's going to be a really powerful and prominent deck in the BT16 format. So as far as what he's doing, he's still doing exactly the same things that you're going to be expecting him to do from the last 2 sets, but now we do have a new level 5 that we're actually going to want to incorporate, which helps accelerate the deck that much more. So it's in the form of an uncommon, and that uncommon is going to be a brand new version of Sol Lugermon. So this card is really fantastic at helping the overall setup because its when Digivolving ability allows us to trash 2 cards from our hand and delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 6000 DP or less, which is pretty decent. And on top of that, if we didn't delete any Digimon, then we get to play a level 4 SOC traded Digimon from our trash for free, which again is just incentivizing the whole field spamminess of the deck. Then he also has a nice all turns ability where when one of our SOC traded Digimon is deleted, then this Digimon with SOC Tamer underneath him can Digivolve into a Fenrir Lugumon from our trash for free, which is really nice in case we don't have the Baumon and we have to use an alternative stack. We do have extra ways to be able to Digivolve up into our main Digimon and be able to use him effectively and meaningfully. Then he has a nice inheritable ability himself that's, again, unsuspending our Digimon to allow our Fenrir to attack multiple times. This time, the condition is just at the end of the attack. If the opponent has more than 1 memory, we get to unsuspend it. So we have ways to bypass the opponent's floodgate if they're trying to stop us from being able to play out Digimon by card effects. So that's just helping overall the deck's speed and consistency when it comes to being able to have alternative ways to use and play our Digimon. Then when it comes to some of the other support cards that the deck got, it's a little bit on the more indirect side because we do have a super rare in the form of Dino Beamon. So even though this is going to be a little bit more on the expensive side, it's in the middle when it comes to the price point of all of the super rares. So it's not like we need 4 of this card, but this is basically just replacing Chimeramon. And even if you don't have access at Dino Beamon, if you still have Chimeramon, that's still a good enough card to use just because it's a DNA Digivolve. This one's just more on color, so it combos better with Wisdom Training because Wisdom Training can actually grab this. This has the partition ability, so if it were to die, it just splits out the level 4s, which could be really powerful if we used it with Black Gatomon as just an example, because then we could use it to be able to get even more attacks just for this Digimon dying. But because it's also a DNA Digivolution, it does have a ability itself to allow us to play 1 level 5 or lower Digimon with free in its traits from our trash for free, and one of our Digimon gains rush for the turn and can attack a player. So it's still kind of synergizing with being hyper aggressive and gaining us extra attacks utilizing free Digimon, which you could think about utilizing Setmon, which also is a low rarity card from the set, as another dark animal armor form free. So there's just a lot of good synergy there. But instead of using Setmon, I am opting to use Dorugamon. So Dorugamon Digimon is a really good card, especially if you do have the Chimera version of the deck, where you don't have Dino Beamons, because this gains us access at another color because it's part black. It's still an SOC, so it still has all of the SOC synergies, and it has collision if we want to try to force some of the opponent's low-level Digimon to block him, with a nice on-play and when digivolving ability to draw one and discard one, which helps with the deck's overall setup. And then if we have a tamer with SOC and its traits in its Digivolution source, which it would be AG if we're going to be using any, then until the end of the opponent's turn, one of their Digimon gains an ability where at the start of the turn, this Digimon has to attack, so we could even utilize the blocker ability that AG could give to even make defensive plays as well. And the inheritable ability isn't too shabby itself, with just some extra DP boosting, but for this iteration of the deck, I am going to be using Ukamon as the free that we're going to be reviving off of our Dino B, because Ukamon is just one of the best cards in the game. It's a really powerful searching tool that just allows us to refresh our raising area and to dig through the top 3 for any tamer or Digimon. So it's just a really good card to help set up, and then we could start chipping really early with this card to make sure that when we're going into our big OTK combo, it's going to be that much easier to be able to defeat the opponent with. And then going from one SOC deck to another, we do have a brand new Dorogoromon SOC deck. So the majority of the cards in this brand new Dorogoromon line is going to be rare and below, so the majority of it is going to be easily accessible. The only super rare is going to be on the level 3, which the level 3 is still pretty decent, and you do need 4 of him because he's helping set up the tamer while providing some nice protection, and also gaining us some extra DP all at the same time. But compared to a lot of the other SRs in the set, it's about a mid-level SR, so it shouldn't be as expensive as some others. But in terms of what the rest of the line is doing, we kind of already saw Dorugamon. So going over Dorugreymon really quickly, it's another card that does have collision. So when we're attacking, it's going to force the opponent, if they have any Digimon, to block, which is good alternative forms of control and removal. On top of the fact that its all turns ability just helps with the ease of our evolution, because when an attack target is switched, where if it has an SOC tamer in its Digivolution source, then we get a Digivolve from our hand into a Digimon with Beast Dragon, Undead, or SOC in their traits without paying their cost. So we get a swing with this card and basically get a free evolution, which is really powerful, on top of the fact that it's all turns inheritable ability, so it's going to trigger just for us deleting the opponent's Digimon, means that we get to play one X Antibody or SOC traded card with a play cost of 5 or less from our trash for free. Then when it comes to the level 6 that we got, it is a rare. It also has collision, and if we're going to be swinging with our level 5 to Digivolve into this mid-attack, it's really good to hit the opponent with, because if we have a tamer with SOC and its traits underneath them, then we get to delete one of the opponent's unsuspended Digimon or tamers. So even if we didn't block, we still have the potential to delete something on their field, and being able to hit tamers is actually really relevant because there's a lot of powerful tamers that we want to make sure we can get off the field. Then it also has a nice all turns ability where when another Digimon is deleted, we get to unsuspend this Digimon, so even if collision does end up going through, or it just misses because we deleted the Digimon we were going to attack, the fact that it's still going to unsuspend means that we could get an extra attack, so we could constantly pick off something and make a damage check also. And as far as what the tamer is going to be doing, the tamer is where the piercing is going to be coming from. So the inheritable is giving our X Antibody or SOC piercing and blocker, so that way we could use it in combination with the level 4 to again have offensive or defensive plays, while the rest of him being just a generic memory fixing tamer that also has Mind Link for X Antibodies and SOCs. So if you really wanted to, you could even spice up the deck and have a good mixed combination between him and either the Alphamon stuff or him and something like the Lugamon stuff, because we are playing in 2 colors and one of those colors is also part purple. But I am taking more of a dex approach with this, where I'm just going to be playing into some of the other cards that are going to help fill up our trash and just facilitate X Antibody shenanigans. And then in terms of X-Antibody shenanigans, we have Leviamon that actually got some lower level X-Antibodies for the deck to play around with. So there's just, again, a lot of build diversity on the type of tools that we have for Leviamon to be a really powerful and strong deck still. But trying to incorporate the brand new X-Antibody cards, you're obviously going to want to run Syakomon from EX5 to play around with for Syakomon X-Antibody because, well, there's no real reason not to. So Syakomon X-Antibody has a nice start of main and win digivolving ability where your opponent gets to trash a card from their hand, and if they don't, you get a gain of memory, which really puts the opponent in a bad position. But you're probably sitting there and thinking, why do I want the opponent to discard cards when that's not exactly what Leviamon is all about? The whole idea on forcing the opponent to discard cards is, well, to get cards into their trash to be able to revive with some of your other cards, so that way it tries to make Leviamon a little bit more clean to be able to get off some of their abilities. Then it also has a nice classic consistency ability on its inheritable side, where it's a when attacking once per turn, we get to discard one and draw one, which is something that the deck already wants to do, is cycle itself and filter through the deck to set itself up the best that it possibly can. And that's why we're also going to be running Gaussmon from BT16 to go along with the brand new Gaussmon X Antibody, because Gaussmon X Antibody has that same inheritable ability, which is, again, really good when it comes to our higher level Digimon, helping with the overall consistency. But its on-play and when Digivolving ability is where if we have a Gaussmon or X Antibody in its Digivolution source, we get to trash any 3 cards under one of the opponent's Digimon or Tamers. So this is really important at being able to have some alternative forms of control, just because the opponent might have some inheritable abilities we don't want, or cards underneath their Tamers that we want to try to get rid of. Then one of the opponent's Digimon or Tamers without cards underneath it can't suspend until the end of their turn, which is, again, just trying to limit what the opponent can possibly do, which in turn helps with this deck being able to last a little bit longer to set itself up or make the plays that it needs to, or just stop the opponent from making their plays to allow us to have an easier time at being able to win, whether it's offensively or defensively. And then when it comes to offensively defensive decks, we also can think about looking at D-Brigade and Digipolice. So D-Brigade and Digipolice kind of basically go hand in hand because the majority of the good Digipolice cards are also D-Brigade cards. So there's no real reason why we should use the Digipolice side of things when the majority of the good cards are also D-Brigades. So it's more of a D-Brigade focused build, but there's still just a lot of good minor Digipolice synergies we could try to take advantage of. So as far as some of the new cards, the majority of them are going to be on the lower levels. So if you already have this deck, again, it's just another really good one and an easy one to be able to upgrade. So Commandramon from BT16 just is going to try to DP boost our Digimon, whether he's in the inheritable source or just sitting on the field, making our cards, again, that much more aggressively defensive. While we also have a new Sealstramon from BT16 that is going to share that same type of ability on its inheritable side, but when we play it or Digivolve into it, we get to return 3 cards with D-Brigade or Digipolice and its traits from our trash to the top of our deck to have this Digimon gain Rush, and it can't be blocked. So this is what's helping push the overall aggression of the deck even further, because most defensive lines of play are trying to block the opponent's attack, and, well, this can't be blocked while also gaining Rush. Then, as far as an off-brand level 4, if you really wanted to run a not D-Brigade one and wanted to run something in the Digipolice side, Mechanorimon is actually a pretty decent one because he does have Blocker, he does have Armor Purge, and his on-play supports Armor Purge, where we get to place a Digimon with Digipolice and his traits from our hand to the bottom of his sources, and then we get a D-Digivolve 1, again, further anti-tempoing the opponent while setting up a blocker, so if we decide to attack or block with this card, Armor Purge could trigger, and out comes that Digimon, whatever we shoved underneath him. Then, speaking of de-Digivolving, we also got a new form of Tankdramon. So, Tankdramon in D-Brigade and Digipolice, its inheritable ability also allows us to de-Digivolve whenever we play another Digimon with D-Brigade or Digipolice. So, that's pretty nice, again, to try to make their Digimon as weak as possible and anti-tempo them and try to wall them out. Then, his on-play and when Digivolving ability is really decent, where we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, and for each Digimon with D-Brigade or Digipolice and its traits, we get to reduce the play cost of one of the opponent's Digimon by 1 until the end of the turn, and then return the revealed cards to the top or the bottom of the deck, and then we get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with a play cost of 4 or less. So that might seem like it's doing a lot, but it's basically just extending the reach of our deletion-based abilities, because most of the time Black wants to delete based on play cost, and this is a way to try to reduce the opponent's play cost of their Digimon, so they're an easier target for our Digimon like a Tankdramon to be able to delete. And then as far as being able to delete the opponent's Digimon, the only SR update that we could think about running or would want to run is going to be Vikemon Ace. So there is a new Darkdramon, but he's not really that great, but Vikemon Ace is actually a pretty decent card that can synergize with the deck, because we do have lots of protection thanks to the BT14 Commandramon. So what this card is doing, obviously being an Ace Digimon, can Digivolve on the opponent's turn, and when we Digivolve up into it, we get a D-Digivolve 2 on one of the opponent's Digimon, which is pretty good anti-tempo, because it could really ruin the Digimon they're trying to attack with, and then none of their Digimon with 1 or fewer Digivolution sources can suspend until the end of their turn, further limiting what their Digimon can even do. And then he has a nice when attacking ability where we then get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 1 or fewer Digivolution sources as a good way to try to pick apart their Digimon, because we have so many ways to de-Digivolve them to be able to get them to that state to begin with. And then in terms of the last big upgrade, we're basically going to replace whatever memory boost we were playing with some copies of Metropolitan Police Department. So again, outside of Vikemon Ace, everything has been rare or below in terms of the upgrade cards, and Metropolitan Police Department is actually pretty good because it is basically doing the exact same thing as what our memory boosts are doing, except not gaining us memory. So its main ability is basically just its stereotypical searcher, checking the top 3 for a D-Brigade or Digipolice. Its security ability basically is the same thing as its main ability, and the delay ability that we're trying to set up lets us reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, which we could rig really easily because we're in D-Brigades, and then we get to play a D-Brigade or Digipolice traded card with a play cost of 4 or less from among them for free, and trash the rest, which again can help start triggering some of our cards and get extra bodies on the field that we would need to do whatever we want with. And then as far as looking at a deck that already kind of does whatever it wants, we do have a little bit of upgrades or updating that we could do to Marcus and Shine Greymon in the form of a brand new common, which is going to be the BT16 Agumon. So even though this card is also interacting with a Light Fang or Nightclaw, we don't care about that because this is just a decent searching or digging tool that also is looking for 2-color cards, which the majority of the deck is, spoiler alert, 2-color cards, while also having a nice inheritable ability to decrease the opponent's security, making it easier for our Marcus to live more consistently when we're aggressing. And incorporating this card means that we're going to want to run a yellow egg, so that's going to put us into a more control-centric build. And as far as other control-centric decks, we do have some updates to what the Insect deck is already doing from BT15, except this time we basically have the other half of it to actually complete the deck and make it meta-competitive and viable. So the most expensive card of the deck that unfortunately you do need 4 of is going to be Tyrant Kabuterimon. He's going to be on the middle-high end of things when it comes to the SRs of the deck, but the rest of the cards are on the lower rarity side, so it's not necessarily that bad as long as you already have the deck. So Tyrant Kabuterimon is going to be the brand new big body focus of the deck just because of how powerful this card is at locking down what the opponent is even capable of. Yes, he is a little bit on the more expensive side in terms of his cost, but his DP is well worth the cost, as well as his abilities to be able to play out a Insectoid and reduce its play cost by 8. So if it costs 8 or less, then it basically becomes free, which is really good. And then while this Digimon is suspended, it also is going to be unaffected by the opponent's Digimon's effects, so it's pretty much immune to anything but options and tamers, and on top of that, at the end of our turn, we get to suspend one of our other Digimon, which he just played, to be able to bottom deck one of the opponent's Digimon that's suspended, whose DP is equal to or less than the Digimon that we just suspended. So this is just really good at being able to set up a big body and control the field while making it very hard for the opponent to interact with. And the card that we ideally want to play off of his ability is going to be another brand new card in the form of Grand Kawagamon Ace. So this is just a Ace Digimon, which is really good in case we want to play a level 5. Then we have that level 5 set up to bait them into this Ace if we didn't already just want to play it. But regardless, this is just another really decent card at just continuously trying to suspend the opponent's Digimon down, limiting their options because they can't unsuspend during their next unsuspend phase, which again just keeps them locked down so we can continuously try to beat them up, you know, the classic green thing. And then we also get to delete one of their suspended tamers because it also can suspend a tamer in case there's not enough Digimon to suspend, which tamer removal is again very important and really strong. And then it also gains security attack +1 when this Digimon becomes suspended, so it's also pretty decent at trying to help push the overall aggression. And then as far as the level 5 that's helping support the deck and what's making Tyrant even stronger is the fact that Metal Life Kawagamon is just one of the defensive backbones of the deck, doing exactly what Izzy is doing, allowing us as an inheritable ability to redirect the opponent's attack into one of our suspended insects, which they already are going to have a hard time dealing anything about because Tyrant should ideally have that immunity being suspended. And then he also is a way to try to increase the DP of our Digimon, making it so that it's even harder to get over because his DP buff is going to be +3000, and we also get to suspend one Digimon. Whether it's going to be ours or the opponent's is to be determined based on the board state, but it's still just another really strong card that's helping propel the deck to greater heights. And as far as another really good supporting Digimon for the deck, we also have Blade Kawagamon. That, again, is just trying to DP boost our Digimon, making it as strong as humanly possible, both whether we're playing it and Digivolving into it, or just as an inheritable while that Digimon is being suspended. And then the last new card for the deck is going to be Kokabuterimon, because Kokabuterimon is just going to be that insectoid stereotypical digger, which is really decent because this one actually has an inheritable ability to further increase the DP of our Digimon. Yay! And with that, we are finally getting to the last deck that I'm going to be talking about for this video in terms of upgrades for BT16, which is going to be Imperial Dramon. So unfortunately, Imperial Dramon is going to be on the more expensive side when it comes to looking at getting just the new cards out of BT16, because one of the most, if not the most expensive SRs, which you do need 4 of them, is going to be the brand new Paildramon because of how good this card is. So Partition's already a really powerful ability that we kind of already talked about earlier, but it also has a nice when Digivolving ability to suspend all of the opponent's Digimon with as many or fewer Digivolution sources as this Digimon, which if we DNA'd, his stack should actually be pretty decent. And then if we did DNA, then none of their Digimon can unsuspend until the end of their turn, which is just really powerful at pinning down their Digimon, again, limiting the options that they have available to them on how to utilize their cards. And then he even has a nice when attacking ability that kind of is like the best of both worlds from the old Paildramons. So we get to suspend one of the opponent's unsuspended Digimon, which again, the classic green thing means that we want to beat it up. But if we didn't suspend a Digimon down, then we get to actually unsuspend this Digimon, meaning we can multi-attack. So ideally we'll want to keep them on a clear field so we can multi-attack with this Digimon. And we do have a couple of cards to try to get them to have no unsuspended Digimon, like a couple of copies of the BT16 Wormmon, because it's when attacking inheritable ability suspends one of the opponent's Digimon down. So if they only have one Digimon suspended, then we could trigger this effect first, so we could suspend their only target, and then that allows our Paildramon to be able to unsuspend. But the new Wormmon does have a really good ability that helps us evolve more efficiently, because at the start of our main or when we hard play this card, if it's our turn, one of our Digimon can Digivolve into a level 4 Digimon with Insectoid or Free in its traits from our trash and reduce that cost by 1. So it's just an easy way to be able to try to Digivolve, especially utilizing cards from our trash, which is something that the deck didn't really have good access of. And then to go alongside of the BT16 Wormmon, we also have the BT16 Vmon, which is kind of acting like the promo Vmon, just gaining us a memory when we're going to be digivolving into our free traded Digimon. And then we also have the inheritable ability to increase our DP by 2000, so we could try to hit specific DP thresholds to try to get over the opponent's wall. And to help set up and facilitate both of our new rookies, we have a brand new Duo Tamer, which is actually pretty cracked and insane on how good this card is. So we want to try to get this card out as quickly as we possibly can because of the value that he brings, where at the start of our turn, we get to play a Vmon or a Wormmon from our hand for free, but the catch is the card goes back into our hand. It doesn't go back into our hand if we DNA Digivolve, so we have to be careful on how we use it, but we have lots of digging and searching tools or cards to just help set up and facilitate digivolving in general. Then it also has a nice ability where during your turn, when one of your Digimon digivolves into a blue or green Digimon, then we get to suspend this Tamer, gain a memory, so it's already making our evolutions efficient, and if DNA digivolved, we get to trash any 3 Digivolution sources under the opponent's Digimon, which is just really good at making sure that our sources are bigger than yours and getting rid of some pesky inheritable abilities we don't want them to have, or cards underneath their cards we don't want them to have. And then that leads us into some of the brand new level 6s that we have to play around with. So we do have a brand new fighter mode in the form of fighter mode Ace. So it's obviously an Ace Digimon, but it has a powerful on-play and when digivolving ability to return one of the opponent's Digimon with as many or fewer Digivolution sources as this Digimon to the bottom, which we already are trying to do with the Tamer to source strip their Digimon, and between DNAing, making our stacks relatively large is not super hard to be able to achieve at some really good removal. Then it also has a nice end of attack ability where we get to unsuspend this Digimon. We always get that, and then we get the added bonus where if there's a dragon mode in its Digivolution source, we can return one of the opponent's suspended Digimon to the bottom of the deck, so we don't actually need to attack into their opponent's suspended Digimon in order to get rid of them. We just use fighter mode Ace to just bottom deck it, which again is really powerful because it's not triggering any on-delete effects that the Digimon might have. But to go alongside of the brand new fighter mode, we also got a brand new dragon mode, and the cool thing is both of these are on the lower rarity side, so they should be pretty easy to access. And what this card is doing is it has a nice when digivolving ability to basically stunlock one of the opponent's Digimon or Tamer and keep them from unsuspending. So we obviously have ways to suspend their cards down, and we want to try to keep them suspended so that way we can use Ace's ability to just bottom deck the suspended Digimon. And then we get to suspend one of their Digimon with this Digimon, which is already good, which we know they won't be able to unsuspend. And we get to unsuspend one of our Digimon, so that way we could attack twice with a Priultramon, digivolve into a Dragon mode, and still be able to unsuspend to get an extra check-in, keeping up with the overall aggression. And then during all turns, when an effect plays or digivolves one of the opponent's Digimon, which there's a lot of that going around, if we have a Tamer, then this Digimon can digivolve into a fighter mode from our hand for free, which we have a ton of really good fighter modes that we want to use in combination with this card to try to stop what the opponent is doing. So even though it does suck that BT16 is a more expensive set than what we would normally have anticipated and expected, we still have lots of ways to be able to make the most out of the situation if you're smart about how you're going to be going about obtaining some of the cards. Obviously, if you're able to pay below this, that's going to be really good, and I definitely would recommend buying a booster box at that normal price, but considering this isn't necessarily that normal price, it's really hard for me to actually recommend buying boosters when you could still obtain a lot of singles and upgrade and update a lot of decks for relatively cheap as long as you already have those decks. So I know this is a little bit on the longer side, but I hope this helped quell some worries that you might have had, and thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your time.